Good morning, Venters. Real quick for the brand new Venters, we vent a lot on this channel, but it's not all about venting. It's actually a walking channel. And here's my promise to you. If you walk with me every single day, if you walk with us, the Venters, and become one of us, you'll ultimately lead yourself to better health with every step that we take together. We walk for about a half hour each and every day. And if you think I'm the only crazy one that walks every day, wait till you see some comments from Sean and Mala. Sean, you left me a comment the other day that's basically said, Jesse, this football season has been awesome. I love the college game and the NFL game, or basically you said something like that. And Sean, I agree with you. This past weekend, we saw Jared Goff throw 5 interceptions, and Detroit, being a great team, still found a way to win. In that same game, I saw a funny play where the Houston Texans lineman tried taking the ball from the quarterback, and he actually caused a fumble, and luckily that same lineman was able to recover the fumble. So I guess it all worked out, but it looked really weird, and it made for a good chuckle. We're not talking about football today, though, guys. I have a fun story. And it's not fun to the people that it happened to, but it's one of those things that I hope for the rest of their lives, they'll be able to share this story around the water cooler, and something that was a negative in their life can actually turn to a positive. And if any of you guys have any stories like that, please let me know down below. And what I mean is, sometimes we have things that really are a dark happening in a particular time of our lives. But a lot of times after time goes by, we're able to look back on those dark days and we can actually laugh about it. I think I told you guys once that for Halloween, me, my girlfriend, my buddy Don, and his girlfriend, we went to a haunted house. When we were in there, my girlfriend started freaking out, and instead of crying, Jesse, help me, she cried, Don, help me. Don was my buddy. Anyway, most embarrassing thing ever. But now I look back and I laugh about it because it makes for a fun little story. It really does. Hey, Bob.
Yeah, Jesse?
How bad are drivers in Tennessee?
I don't know, Jesse. How bad are they?
Bob, Tennessee drivers are so bad that 609 sober drivers in the state of Tennessee were arrested for DUI over the past year. Is that crazy or what? Oh my goodness. Now imagine this. If you're sober and you get pulled over by a cop, you're already thinking, oh geez, did my tail light go out? Do I have expired tags? What's this cop pulling me over for? Now imagine he pulls you over, feels like you're drunk because maybe your speech is slurred, or maybe there was an accident that just happened, right, that you're a part of. And all of a sudden, you're going through DUI testing. And now imagine that even when that test comes back sober, imagine you getting stuck with a DUI. Check this out. Investigative reporter Jeremy Finley. And Jeremy, I'm a fan of yours now. I'm starting to really like all these different reporters that are willing to investigate and call out corruption. I love it. He discovered that it's a statewide problem there in Tennessee. Henry Esslinger is our first victim here. Let's talk a little bit about Henry. Henry Esslinger let state troopers, know that he needed to stop taking his field sobriety test. He felt both lightheaded and very not well at all due to adrenaline that was pulsing through his body after being in an accident. He technically rear-ended a tractor trailer. By the way, if you're sober, why are you tailgating a tractor trailer? Wherever you are, they must be the slowest vehicle on the road. And if you're behind them to the point where you're rear-ending them, there are reasons that cops sometimes can assume that we're under the influence. So this one might not be the best example, but still, check this out. He had slurred speech and glassy eyes. Again, could that be alcohol or drugs? Yes. But it could also be the shock that you go through when you're in an accident. I was behind this lady at an intersection one time. It was a small intersection just in a little neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, she got a green light. She was right in front of me. And she slowly but surely made a left turn. Meanwhile, the guy coming from this direction, right? We were turning left. A guy was coming. He had a red light. He ends up smashing into her. I get out of my car to see if she's okay. She looks up at me and she goes, "Why did you hit me?" And she literally looked drunk, but she wasn't. She was just in shock from the car accident. So, even as a non-state trooper or non-police officer, I know that right after an accident, it's not uncommon for people to be, kind of out of sorts, kind of acting maybe a little erratic because, again, it's not like we go through car accidents every day. So after seeing her situation, I can kind of understand how Esslinger here sounded like he might have been drunk. Anyway, he had slurred speech and glassy eyes. The trooper suspected that he was under the influence, of course. And while he did sound drunk, by the way, they had this one actually on the video, and I'll tell you guys how to find the video here next to me here. When asked if he was willing to take a blood test, Esslinger agreed. He even said he was okay with a breathalyzer. He gave blood. Despite giving blood, he was still arrested for DUI. But a couple months later, his blood test came back and said he was in fact 100% sober. Another sober driver was a man named Reed Hawley, who was arrested back in 2019 by state troopers after appearing to be impaired and given a breathalyzer. Now check this out. Reed's breathalyzer, guys, actually showed no presence of alcohol. Yet the trooper said, quote unquote, "You're on something." But blood tests, once again, showed that he was not on anything. So the DUI case was dismissed, but here's the problem. By the time he went through the court case and got it dismissed because he wasn't drunk at all, he had already spent over $7,000 on both attorney and court fees. So once again, the courts and the attorneys seem to get rich. Meanwhile, us, the citizens, tend to get shitted on even if we're innocent. There's something wrong here. I'm also starting to see a pattern. Is it just me, or after listening to Walk Talk Vent shows just for the past 2 or 3 weeks, doesn't it kind of sound like there's this awful pattern of the state of Texas or the state of Tennessee or the state of Pennsylvania getting rich off of these court fees that they hand out to people? And I'm starting to think that when they have poor people in front of them, they give them smaller bonds, once again, just so the state can get something in their pockets. A third man, Nate Collins, this one was the one that almost brought me to tears, guys. A third man, Nate Collins, fought DUI after failing a sobriety test. He believes that this charge itself, guys, actually prevented him from getting accepted into grad school. So we don't talk about those things very often. But if there's 609 people that went through this, right, and they were wrongfully convicted, what about the people that just paid their fine and went about their day? In the future, the state of Tennessee should cover all legal fees for these types of situations. They should be able, for people that are willing to take breathalyzer tests, they should be willing to be let off. And if a person's in an accident and they don't seem well enough to drive, well, let's get them some assistance home. Let's not ruin their lives. At Mingo, 2024 says they ruined that guy's entrance into grad school, absolutely derailing everything that he's worked for. You know, when you're going through school, especially as an early adult, it's not like you're immune from the problems of the world. You still have to pay your bills. You still have to wake up every morning and make sure that things get done in your life. And when all of a sudden you're dealing with a DUI, guess what happens? Your car insurance skyrockets, right? Because now you have to get SR22 insurance. Your job can fire you because maybe now you have a felony on your record. Getting future jobs might be more difficult. If you're a teacher and you have even DUI, even misdemeanor DUI charges, it could prevent you from getting a job in the future. So these are things that should be taken seriously, and every single person should be treated uniquely, especially if they're not actually drunk. And I hope that there's other people that if this has happened to them, I hope the state of Tennessee does something to rectify this situation, because it's kind of sad to think there's 600 plus people that were sober that got pinged for DUI. At You Make It Happen says 609 people had charges dismissed, but what about everyone else that were innocent as well and took plea deals to get it over with? That is the scary thing, isn't it? The whole idea that people sometimes just say, hey, I can afford to pay this, let's make this problem go away. And when that happens, the court gets their money, the lawyer gets their money, the police go by without any issues, when the reality is they've caused a pretty big problem, and we think it went away because they didn't complain about it. Remember, there's a certain segment of people in the country that really hate complainers so much that even when they're wronged, they refuse to open up and complain about it. But I agree with you, You Make It Happen. There's something really sad about the idea that this is probably bigger than 609 people. By the way, I don't know if this 609 people went back 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Hopefully it went back further than 1 year. If this all happens in 1 year, that's even worse. By the way, in the video of the first guy, the Esslinger guy, they were actually showing video from his traffic stop, from the police cam, the body cam footage, so to speak. And he legit sounded drunk. He was the legit drunk sound that, like, I don't think it was the cops being jerks. He legitimately sounded drunk. But when you add to the effect that he was in an accident, I think that would explain why he's drunk. So in the future, hopefully those cops can have this as a learning experience, that you're not always drunk just because you appear drunk. We also know through fighting that if you take a certain head blow, you can kind of have a momentary situation where you kind of sound punch drunk. I'm sure you guys have heard fighters after a tough battle, sometimes they literally sound like they just downed 24 beers. You know, at Izzy Michaels 2892 says, it's not only dirty cops. The court is equally to blame. Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I said. If you have a situation where all the members of the court system are kind of in cahoots together, I have a feeling judges have been aware of this for a long time, that occasionally people are actually sober. Wouldn't it be nice if the judges actually spoke with that great voice of theirs? And wouldn't it be nice if they actually said something along the lines of, we need to arrive at a situation where we're going to go ahead and pay for this person's legal representation? I mean, is that one of those things that judges just can't offer up? You're telling me that you can't talk to the prosecution and say, hey, this man is obviously sober, your cops and troopers were in the wrong, and with all the monies that we have floating through the system, if you're telling me that those court fees can't be erased and forgiven, and that the lawyer fees can't be taken care of out of some sort of Tennessee slush fund, well, that's kind of disappointing. But again, it seems like 9 times out of 10, stuff I hear from our legal system all around the country seems very disappointing. Another thing that I'd be willing to wonder is how many people that are maybe underserved and poor, poverty-ridden people have actually gotten in a lot of trouble from this. How many people have actually gotten divorced because maybe their wife thought, that they were drinking again. These things can have so many bad negative domino effects. It would just be nicer if there was a better way to actually come at the truth other than getting a sobriety test that shows 0 and, oh, by the way, we're going to arrest you anyway because you're on something. That seems like a situation where you can literally stay with that person until someone can pick them up and take them home. You get in an accident, you hit your head, you're shooken up, you don't know which way is up, which way is down. You're going to probably sound out of your mind. Back to that thing I was saying about the pattern. It really does kind of look like different states have a way of pulling out millions of dollars a year from people. And there's something really irritating because, our government is supposed to be for the people, of the people, by the people. And I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like a lot of times nowadays, it seems like our government is against us in one way, shape, or form. Now, that's not to say that I'm anti-American, but it does seem anti-American when judges and court system just have ways of milking thousands of dollars out of people. And some way, somehow, we've gotten to the point where no matter what country you're in, if you get in any type of legal trouble, you have to basically go in debt to make sure that your lawyer is better than your opponent's lawyer. Does anybody else find that a little disgusting? I'm not saying there's not a place in this world for lawyers and attorneys, but what I'm saying is if you absolutely can't get through the court system without one, then maybe there is something wrong there. This last person, I forgot to write down their name, I'll figure it out though, says until cops are personally held accountable for these things, this will keep happening. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but one of the things that me and my buddies always thought was kind of shitty is that a lot of police officers have these quotas where they're expected to give out X amount of tickets each month and X amount of tickets each year, right? These tickets derive revenue for the police and for the state. And any type of situation where you're given a quota as an officer, again, disgusting. One of the things that I used to hate back in the day that I don't see very often, but you guys might depending on where you live, is a lot of states will put up these red light running cameras. And they don't take into account that sometimes there might be a person tailgating you and you don't really want to slam on your brakes, so you just kind of go through real quick. I drive exceedingly safe and slow, so I don't run through red lights no matter. But I remember when these cameras were up, it was like they would catch you if you go X amount of miles over the speed limit on the freeway. And they would catch you if you accidentally ran a red light or accidentally turned when it wasn't your time. And they mail you this ticket for $200-300. And then you find out that some way, somehow, through the bureaucracy known as the government, that even when they're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year in these pictures and sending people tickets through the mail because of these cameras, you find out that they're losing money. And that's the problem with the country. Our government does not know how to be profitable in anything. As a matter of fact, a successful government is one that actually loses money and needs more resources. Because if you have something going where you're successful and you're not losing money, the government will pull back resources from you. So we've got all of our politicians and all of our city and state governments set up where they intentionally try to always set themselves up in a way where they constantly need more funds. You guys have heard me complain about the FBI and CIA when it comes to this. Every year they tell us how we're behind the 8 ball, they need more money, and oh, by the way, we're the best. Well, how are we the best if we're constantly in need of more money and other countries like Russia and China, with 1/10 of our military budget, some way, somehow, they're always ahead of us when it comes to cyber and military? It makes absolutely no sense. On another side note, because I think we can all agree that if we got tickets for being sober, it would be a bummer. But hopefully that doesn't happen to very many people. And even though 609 people sounds like a lot, and even if that number was tripled up to 2,000, it sounds like your odds of this happening to you are still relatively low. But if you guys remember the storms that we had in various states on the east coast of the US, FEMA went into those states like Tennessee and North Carolina to help those people after the hurricane. And I don't know if you guys heard this story, but one of the FEMA supervisors, I guess, saw a couple houses with Trump signs in the front yard, and they purposely skipped over one or two of those houses to help other houses where maybe they weren't voting so forwardly for Donald Trump. Now, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of times we are told how the Republicans are a little bit racist, they're a little bit misogynistic, they don't treat people equally. But then you hear stories like this where an actual FEMA supervisor is skipping over Republican homes to help out Democrat homes. And by the way, this is a true story. FEMA even recognizes it and fired that supervisor. Now, I look at it from a point of view of this isn't Democrats against us. It's one bad apple. So here's my question to you. Are you strong enough to look at things in a similar way? These cops that are doing these things, some of them are legitimate bad apples that know this person's not inebriated. But some of them are just doing the best they can, because if you see somebody at an accident where they rear-ended somebody, especially a tractor trailer, and they're inebriated or they sound like they are, you know, you're trying to do the best you can. We need to get rid of the bad cops, but we need to give the good cops a second chance when they're trying to do their job the right way. Not every cop is bad. Not every Democrat is bad. Most Democrats and most cops are actually good people. So what do? Do we look at FEMA? Do we point our finger up at them and say, you're a Democrat entity and you are against Trump and against Republicans? No, again, it was just one bad apple. But here's the problem with the one bad apple, whether they're in the police force or they're a supervisor at FEMA. That one bad apple can poison the whole bunch of apples. Because now in the future, people are going to be looking for FEMA to make a mistake. So instead of saying, hey, we need government agencies like FEMA to come in when no one else will and help save people, right? But what we don't need is we don't need to start thinking that they're secretly against us. So again, to this supervisor, I'm willing to forgive you, but I think FEMA was right to fire you. We don't need someone like you making the decision on who gets help and who gets ignored. And I'll tell you what, if you were one of those Trump families and you saw through your window as FEMA just went on by to the next house, that must have been one of the saddest feelings ever. And for that person that happened to, not only should you be fired, but I think that they should celebrate your name all around the country as kind of a bad person. You know, now here's the problem with that. Is there a chance that person woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day? Yes, but look what happens when that person does. He or she chooses to play the role of God, and he or she chooses to help some and hurt others. We are not God. Nobody on this planet is God. Nobody is king, even though I would love being king and I would torture the people. Nobody is king, right? So we need to treat people with respect, even if they disagree with us. That's where the country has really turned. We used to be okay with people disagreeing. Let's bring that back. If we can get to the point where we can be okay with disagreeing with one another, then we can probably start working together to solve some of these problems. With that being said, you and I have a problem right now. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas right upon us, and we need to lose some weight. So even though my walk is over for the day, keep going. Every half hour you walk, you're killing 150 calories. You're burning them off of your body, and there's 150 calories in a can of soda. So if you're gonna walk in and have a can of soda, take an extra half-hour walk real quick to kind of balance it out. And remember, the problem with sugars is not just what it does to your waistline, it also can ruin your teeth. And if you're in your middle ages like I am, you want to keep your teeth as long as you can. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.